My family called me a burden, kicked me out when I won the lottery, and years later, they came crawling back. If stories like this inspire you to rise above what tried to break you, subscribe to this channel for more powerful real-life journeys that prove your past doesn't define your future. I was never meant to exist. I was the aftermath of my mother's reckless weekend in Miami with a stranger she never saw again. If it weren't for the shame my grandparents felt, I wouldn't be here. But under their pressure, my mother married her high school boyfriend, and a few months later, I was born. Not out of love, out of obligation. My stepfather, Dean, made sure I knew it every single day. "There goes my freedom," he'd mutter, not even bothering to hide the bitterness in his voice, like I was the anchor that dragged him down from some wild dream life. My mom, Claudia, wasn't cruel in the traditional sense. She didn't yell or hit, but she also never hugged me, never said she loved me. I was just there, a ghost in her house. Growing up in our cramped apartment in Milwaukee, I lived by one rule: don't cause trouble. I learned to tiptoe across squeaky floors, to whisper instead of speak, to vanish when company came over. But none of that was ever enough. I was still the living reminder of a mistake they couldn't erase. When I was 7, the miracle baby arrived, Amelia. She was planned, she was wanted, she was everything I wasn't. My mother cried tears of joy at her birth. Dean brought flowers and balloons. Relatives came to visit. They cooed and clapped and called her blessed. Me? I became the help. "Leah, take care of your sister." "Leah, keep quiet. Amelia's sleeping." "Leah, why can't you be more like her?" Amelia got tea parties and dolls. I got secondhand clothes from my mom's coworker. Amelia had birthday parties with cupcakes and clowns. I got a candle and a store-brand muffin, if I got anything at all. Once, when I was 9, I asked my mom, "Did I do something wrong?" She looked past me like I was a smudge on the wall. She said nothing. I stopped asking after that. But I never stopped dreaming. I imagined a world where someone actually saw me. By age 10, I was scrubbing floors, washing dishes, folding laundry, and making dinner. My mom didn't even pretend anymore. "Leah, the sink's a mess. Do it again." "Leah, Amelia's room is dusty. Clean it." "Leah, dinner's late." And just like that, I became their invisible maid, while Amelia lived like a princess. They gave Amelia new toys and dolls whenever she so much as glanced at them in a store. I remember once, I must have been 8, I gathered the courage to ask Mom for a new backpack because mine was literally holding on by threads. She gave me a look like I'd just asked for a yacht. "Your backpack still works fine." A week later, Amelia walked through the door carrying a brand new glittery pink one with matching lunchbox and pencil case. No occasion, just because she asked. But honestly, it wasn't the toys or gifts that hurt the most. It was the way they looked at her. The warmth in Mom's eyes. The pride in Dean's voice when he'd say, "That's my smart girl," every time Amelia brought home a gold star. And me? I could scrub every corner of that apartment, fold 5 loads of laundry, make dinner from scratch, and not a single thank you. I'd ask if they needed help, and they'd just wave me off like I was part of the furniture. Still, there was one place where I felt like me. One thing that made me feel seen, even if no one else noticed. Cooking. I was 9 when I first made something on my own. Just scrambled eggs and toast, but watching the yolks turn golden, the smell rising from the pan, I felt proud. For once, I'd created something from nothing. I started watching Mom quietly when she cooked, memorizing the way she chopped onions or seasoned chicken. I learned fast. By 12, I could handle full dinners on my own. I still remember the first time I made lasagna from scratch. I poured everything into that dish, my effort, my hope. When Amelia took a bite, her eyes lit up. "Wow, this is amazing!" My mom smiled, but not at me. She looked at Dean and said, "I think I made it better this time, don't you agree?" I stood there frozen, fists clenched, throat tight. I made it. But I didn't say a word, because I already knew. Shadows don't get credit. Still, I dreamed. I wanted to be a chef, not just a kitchen helper, but someone people came to for the food, for the story on the plate. I watched cooking shows after school, filled notebooks with recipes, and imagined my own restaurant. One night, I said it out loud. Dean laughed. "What are you, the next Gordon Ramsay?" Mom shook her head. "Be realistic, Leah. Restaurants fail. Get a stable job, teacher, secretary, something normal." Then Amelia chimed in, grinning. "Yeah, who'd even eat your food?" "You could work at McDonald's," Amelia said with a smirk. "They need people who can cook too." They all laughed. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the heat that burned behind my teeth. I didn't understand it. Despite the mockery, Dean still agreed to pay for my tuition to Midwest Culinary Institute. But he made his intentions painfully clear. "This is all you're getting from me. Don't expect a dime more. The house, the car, the savings, they're for Amelia." I should have been crushed. Instead, I felt strangely free. I didn't want their money, I just needed a chance. Culinary school gave me that. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the extra, the afterthought. I was Leah. And that was enough. No one compared me to Amelia. No one dismissed me. My instructors saw my potential. My classmates respected my work. In that kitchen where sweat and fire shaped every dish, I finally mattered. I stayed late mastering my knife cuts, studying flavor pairings, experimenting with sauces. Every burnt dish became a lesson. Every compliment, a step closer to the dream I'd carried since I was a kid. I envisioned it all. My name on the front of a cozy bistro, a place where people came not just to eat, but to feel something. But after graduation, reality slapped me hard. No savings, no support, nowhere to live. With no other choice, I moved back to that same apartment in Milwaukee. The wallpaper still peeled in the corners. My childhood bed squeaked under the weight of a woman trying not to fall apart. "Leah, you're a chef now, right?" Mom's voice dripped with fake sweetness. "That means you'll be cooking dinner every night. You don't have anything more important going on, do you?" Amelia laughed. "At least now you're finally useful." I didn't respond. What was the point? I hung my culinary diploma above the dresser with chipped paint. It looked out of place in that room, as out of place as I felt in this family. But I made a promise to myself that night. This is temporary. I will leave, and this time, I'm not coming back. I worked long shifts at a small Italian place on the east side of town. The pay was garbage, but the experience was gold. I'd come home exhausted, only to be met with a chore list from my mom. "You may have a job, but don't forget, this house still needs cleaning." I wanted to laugh, but it wasn't funny. I'd been cleaning since I was 8. Meanwhile, Amelia still got to sleep in and sip lattes while I scrubbed the kitchen floor. She was still their princess, and I was still the maid. My parents never hesitated to spend money on Amelia. Anything she wanted, she got. The day she started her senior year, Dean pulled up in front of the apartment in a brand new white SUV. The windows sparkled, the engine purred like it knew it was special. "Come outside, baby girl," he shouted, grinning like a game show host. "My little girl deserves the best." He handed her the keys like he was passing on a crown. I stood in the doorway, apron still tied around my waist, watching the sunlight glint off the polished hood. That bitterness I'd spent years trying to swallow rose right back up. When I was her age, a car wasn't even a fantasy. I took buses in the snow, borrowed a wobbly old bike just to get to work shifts. When I once mentioned saving up for a used car, they scoffed. "With what money, Leah?" Mom said, rolling her eyes. "You can barely pay your share of rent, let alone a car." Rent. That was their favorite weapon. Even though I cooked every meal in that house, scrubbed every dish, vacuumed every room, I was still expected to hand over a chunk of my paycheck every month. "You live here, don't you?" Mom would say. "You're not a guest." So I gave them money, not because I wanted to, but because I had no other choice. My wages from the restaurant barely covered groceries, let alone saving for an apartment. I was stuck, trapped. That winter, I made a promise to myself. I would do something, anything, to feel like I mattered to them. I saved every tip, every spare dollar. I couldn't afford the fancy gifts Amelia got, a brand new iPhone, a glittering silver necklace, but I wanted to give something meaningful. So I bought lottery tickets. Not the cheap ones at the gas station, but tickets for the state's biggest Christmas jackpot. I put one in each envelope addressed to Mom, Dean, and Amelia. On Christmas morning, I laid them on the table like fragile little hopes. But when they opened them, I wasn't met with gratitude, just laughter. Lottery tickets? Dean raised a brow. You serious? Mom clicked her tongue. Couldn't think of something useful? Amelia cackled. Wow, you're so broke you couldn't even buy a real gift? Then Mom looked at me and smiled. That smile. Well, since Leah didn't get anyone anything meaningful, it's only fair she doesn't get any gifts either. They all nodded like it made perfect sense. I gripped the table, jaw clenched, nails digging into my palm. Then I stood, voice shaking. You know what? I'll keep them. Merry Christmas. I snatched the tickets back and stormed out the door, the cold air outside a welcome relief. Christmas is supposed to feel warm, loving, safe. That day, I had never felt more unwanted. A few days later, I had nearly forgotten the tickets. They were still crumpled in the pocket of my winter coat, tossed carelessly onto the chair in my room, until I checked them. I had no reason to believe luck would ever find me. But one slow morning during my break at the restaurant, as I sat in the back corner sipping cold coffee, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Probably spam, I thought, but something made me answer. Hello, is this Leah Carter? A calm voice asked. This is Linda from the Wisconsin State Lottery Commission. I'm calling to inform you that you're holding a winning jackpot ticket. I sat up straight. I'm sorry, what? Your lottery ticket matched all the numbers from the Christmas draw. After taxes, your total payout is $1,750,000. The world tilted. I blinked. My coffee cup slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. 1,750,000. I had never even dreamed of a number that big. Not in my world, not with my name. Linda walked me through the steps to claim it. Her voice was calm and professional, but inside I was anything but. My hands were shaking. My thoughts were racing. This was it. My chance. The one I thought would never come. I should have stayed quiet. I should have planned. But I had spent so long feeling invisible, overlooked, ignored. I needed someone, anyone, to see me in that moment. So I made the stupidest decision of my life. I went home. They were in the kitchen eating takeout. I stood in the doorway, barely able to breathe. I won the lottery, I said, my voice trembling. $1,750,000. Forks froze midair. Amelia's phone slipped from her fingers. Then she stood, eyes wide. Wait, that was the ticket you were going to give Mom. That means it belongs to the family. My stomach dropped. No, I said firmly. You all laughed, remember? You called it a waste. I took them back. Dean set down his fork and looked at me, calm and calculated. Leah, you live under this roof. You should share with your family. That money could help us a lot. Claudia chimed in, voice too sweet. Honey, do you even know how to handle money like that? Let your father and I take care of it for you. I laughed, cold and bitter. Don't pretend to care now. If I hand over that money, I'll never see a cent of it again. Amelia stood, fists clenched. You're selfish. You owe us. We supported you for years. Rent, food, bills. How do you think you survived? I chuckled dryly. I owe you. I was your maid, your cook, your live-in cleaner. I gave Mom my paycheck. And now suddenly I'm in debt to you? Dean's face darkened. His voice dropped. If you won't share, Dean said coldly, then you don't need to stay here. I stared at him. What do you mean? Claudia stood up abruptly, arms crossed, eyes like ice. If you're not going to give this family the money, then get out. You've got your lucky break now. Go take care of yourself. We've let you stay here long enough. For a moment, I felt the usual sting, but right behind it came something unexpected. Relief. I looked each of them in the eye, Dean, Claudia, Amelia, and I saw it clearly for the first time. They never saw me as family, just someone who owed them something. I drew a breath. Fine, I'll leave. No one stopped me. No guilt. No hesitation. Just silence. I went upstairs, packed my clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed my documents and the winning ticket that had changed everything. At the front door, I paused. Thank you, I said quietly, but firmly. Thanks to you, I finally understand. I don't belong here. Then I stepped out into the freezing Milwaukee night, clutching the only things I had. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew this much. I would never come back. The next day, my first stop was the Wisconsin lottery office. I needed to make sure the money was legally mine, that no one, especially not them, could ever touch it. When I signed that check, $2,000, my hands trembled. But not from fear, from hope. This wasn't just money. It was freedom. It was a door, wide open. I didn't blow it on a flashy car or designer bags. That was never who I was. I needed a plan. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment on the quiet outskirts of Milwaukee. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in my life, I had peace. I had silence. I had space. I spent weeks hunched over my laptop, researching every detail about opening a restaurant. Permits, location, staffing, suppliers, everything. I couldn't afford to wing it. I had to be smart. Then I found it. An old, boarded-up diner in the heart of downtown. Abandoned for years, the floors were cracked, the ceiling leaked, and the air smelled like mildew. But I saw what no one else did. Potential. The landlord laughed when I told him my plan. You want to turn this dump into a restaurant? Good luck. But I didn't need luck. I needed work, purpose, vision. I hired a crew, picked out every fixture, every table, every tile. I wasn't just building a restaurant. I was building a home for people who'd spent their lives feeling invisible, just like I had. A place where people came not just for food, but for the experience. That's what I was building. 3 months after signing the lease, I stood in front of gleaming glass doors beneath a sign that read, Leah's Table. My name, my dream, my work. Opening day was the most terrifying moment of my life. I had no idea if anyone would show up, let alone like what I served. I stood in the kitchen, apron tied tight, heart pounding louder than the kitchen fan. Then, just before noon, the first customer walked in. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes ordered the mushroom risotto. She took a bite and smiled. That one smile lit something inside me I thought had died years ago. Day after day, more people came. Word spread about the little restaurant downtown where the chef cooked every dish herself and came out to greet guests. I created signature recipes, hosted intimate food nights, and used social media to share behind-the-scenes glimpses of my journey. Within months, Leah's Table was booked out weeks in advance. A year later, I opened a second location. By the third year, I had a third. I, Leah Carter, the girl who had once been kicked out by her own family, was now the proud owner of a thriving restaurant chain. And I was just getting started. One afternoon, I was sitting in my office at the third location, reviewing budgets, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost declined it, but something told me to answer. Leah, a voice said. Familiar, faint, cold. It was Claudia, my mother. I hadn't heard her voice in 3 years. No calls, no messages, just silence. Until now. What do you want? I asked, my voice flat. She sighed, as if the world had worn her thin. It's Amelia. She's in trouble. Lost her job. Got caught stealing. No one will hire her. She's drowning in debt. The family's struggling. We need your help. I closed my eyes, breathing deep to suppress the heat in my chest. And now you thought of me? I asked. The daughter you threw out? She's still your sister, she said softly, trying to reach something inside me. She made mistakes. She just needs a chance. Part of me wanted to hang up, but somewhere deep down, I still remembered the little sister she used to be, before the arrogance, before the cruelty. I sighed. She can work for me, but no special treatment. She follows every rule like anyone else. Thank you, Leah, Claudia said. I knew you were a good person. I laughed, dry and sharp. Funny, that's not what you thought when you threw me away. And just like that, Amelia started working at one of my restaurants as an HR manager. But this time, I was the one holding the keys. At first, Amelia was the model employee. She arrived early, stayed late, helped staff with anything and everything. She smiled at customers, joked with the kitchen crew, even offered to take on extra shifts. For a moment, I let myself believe maybe she really had changed. But then, the whispers started. A couple of employees approached me after a team meeting, fidgeting, uneasy. Leah, one of them said, we've been hearing things. They told me Amelia had been quietly sowing discord, saying I underpaid them, that I was hoarding the profits, that the restaurant's success was built off the money I stole from the family. According to her, the business should have been hers, that I had taken what rightfully belonged to them. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe it was a misunderstanding, old bitterness bleeding through. But then I started to feel it. The energy shifted. Some employees avoided me in the halls. Others stopped greeting me altogether. Enthusiasm in the kitchen dropped. Teamwork fractured. My once tight-knit staff started to splinter. Then, one evening, my head chef Marco pulled me aside. Leah, he said, his voice low. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, but Amelia's stirring people up. She's been telling staff that if they strike, you'll either raise wages or be forced to shut things down. A slow-burning fury began to rise inside me. I had taken her in, given her a job, a clean slate, and she'd used that chance to stab me in the back. But I wasn't the Leah she used to mock anymore. I was no longer the shadow in the corner of the kitchen. She was about to find out exactly who I had become. I clenched my jaw. Don't worry, Marco. I know what to do. I hoped it was just rumors, just gossip. But then, late one evening, Jenna, my financial manager, walked into my office. Her face was pale. Leah, we have a problem. I looked up from the ledger. What kind of problem? We're missing $7,500. The cash is gone from the safe. No record, nothing. My stomach dropped. Does anyone else know? I asked. She shook her head. I only just finished checking everything again. But Leah, only a few people have access to that safe. You, me, Marco, and Amelia. She didn't have to finish the sentence. I couldn't make accusations without proof. But I also couldn't ignore this. If someone was stealing from me, from my staff, they were going to be held accountable. So I quietly had security cameras installed around the safe and accounting office. 4 days later, just past midnight, I got an alert. Unusual activity detected. I clicked into the live feed, and there she was, Amelia, standing by the safe, glancing over her shoulder. Caught, red-handed. Amelia. She slipped into the office quietly, glancing over her shoulder before approaching the safe. I watched from my laptop screen, heart pounding in my chest. She entered the code, opened it smoothly, and began pulling out cash. Wads of it. She shoved them into her purse with practiced ease. There was no doubt, no misunderstanding, no room for denial. I had given Amelia a second chance, and she had betrayed me again. The next morning, I called the police. When they arrived at the restaurant and asked to speak with her, Amelia's expression shifted instantly, confusion turning to fear. What? What's going on? I didn't do anything, she stammered, looking around at the gathering employees. I crossed my arms, voice steady. "I have evidence. The security footage recorded everything." Her face turned ghostly pale. "You wouldn't do this to me," she whispered. "Not your own sister." I looked her straight in the eyes. "I already did." In front of the staff and customers, they cuffed her hands and read her rights. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at me, as if still trying to understand how I had stopped being the quiet girl who tolerated everything. Less than an hour later, Claudia and Dean stormed into the restaurant, their fury barely contained. "Leah, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Dean barked. "You called the police on your own sister?" Claudia sobbed, mascara streaking down her face. "She just made a mistake." I let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake? The real mistake was trusting any of you again." Dean jabbed a finger toward me. "You drop those charges right now or you're no longer our daughter." His words didn't sting. They set me free. I folded my arms, calm and unapologetic. "Good. Pretend I never existed, just like you did the day I walked out." They hurled threats, lawsuits, public humiliation, disownment, but none of it mattered. I stood my ground. Eventually, they stormed out, dragging their disappointment with them like old luggage they refused to let go of. But this time I didn't feel pain. I felt peace. The door they once slammed shut behind me. I had locked it for good. On the day of the trial, I arrived early, not because I was eager for justice, but because I wanted to see if Amelia would still lie, still pretend. She walked in looking picture perfect, hair styled, blazer crisp, eyes shining with artificial sorrow. She took the stand, sighed, and began her performance. "I never intended to steal," she said softly. "I just borrowed it. I was going to return it, but before I could, Leah called the police. I never thought she'd do this. To family." I clenched my fists but said nothing. Let the truth speak for itself. I had been preparing for this moment. Then the prosecutor stood up. "Miss Carter, are you aware that this isn't the first time you've been accused of theft?" Amelia's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about." The courtroom doors creaked open. A man in a navy suit stepped in, his expression unreadable. I recognized him instantly, Amelia's former boss. He took the stand and calmly recounted everything, how she had embezzled funds from his company and, when caught, accused him of sexual harassment in a desperate attempt to avoid consequences. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Amelia's eyes widened in panic. For the first time, she had no defense, no lie that could save her. Then the prosecutor played an audio recording, testimonies from her former coworkers. They confirmed the entire story. Her manipulation, her deceit, her betrayal. And when the judge finally delivered the verdict, it was swift and clear. Guilty, theft, fraud. I watched as the officers handcuffed her again. Amelia broke down, sobbing, screaming. She begged the judge, pleaded with the prosecutor, then finally turned to me, her eyes burning. "You'll regret this, Leah," she hissed. "You stole my life." I met her gaze, steady and cold. "No, Amelia. You destroyed your own life." After that day, I never answered another call from my parents. They tried, first with blame, then with guilt. But I was done. They no longer had any hold on me. I returned to my life, my real life, and poured everything into expanding Leah's table. 3 years later, we had 5 locations across Wisconsin and had grown into a recognizable culinary brand. But more than the business, I had something far greater. Family. Not the kind I was born into, but the kind I built. Marco, Jenna, and every loyal team member who stood by me. We didn't share blood, but we shared respect, loyalty, and love. I had once been Leah Carter, the forgotten girl, the invisible sister, the castaway. Now I was Leah Carter, founder, chef, leader, a woman who fought for her future and won. My story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's ever been told they weren't enough. For anyone who's been used, overlooked, or betrayed. Sometimes family isn't safe. Sometimes freedom means walking away. And success? It's not luck. It's fire. It's belief. It's grit. So tell me, what part of my story resonated with you? Have you had to walk away from people who held you back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow this channel for more true stories that remind you, you are not alone. If you've stayed with me until the end, thank you. This wasn't just a story, it was my life. There were times I wondered if I mattered, if anyone would ever see the work I put in, the pain I carried, or the strength I tried to hide. But I learned something through it all. You don't need anyone's permission to build the life you deserve. I want to hear from you. What would you say to someone like me, someone who fought to rise after being pushed aside? If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, underestimated by your own family, or held back by people who were supposed to support you, tell me. Leave a comment. Share your story. I see you now, just like I wished someone had seen me back then. And if you're still in that place, trapped, undervalued, unheard, let me say this. You can leave. You can cut ties. You can choose yourself and not feel guilty for it. People may call you selfish for setting boundaries, but listen to me. Self-respect is not selfish. Build your own table. Don't wait for a seat at theirs. Believe in your worth, even when no one else does. That belief is where real change begins. So tell me, what did my journey make you feel? Did it remind you of your own, of someone you know? Comment below. Let's make this a space where we lift each other up. And if this story moved you, don't forget to follow this channel. There are more stories like mine, real, raw, and honest, because somewhere out there, someone else needs to know they're not alone. I was Leah, the forgotten girl. Now I'm Leah, the woman who rose. And you can too.